Our next speaker is Gil Friend. He's a legend. If you're working for a city, a state, a municipality, a county, a province, and you're working on electrification or solar, you need to talk to Gil. He's the Chief Sustainability Officer at Palo Alto. He's charged to develop a world-class sustainability strategy for the city and manage the activities that will lead Palo Alto to being the greenest city in America, as he states, whatever that means. Widely considered one of the founders of the sustainability business movement, he's been named an inaugural member of the Sustainability Hall of Fame, along with Amory Lovins, Carl Henry, Robert, a bunch of other people, a few other people, it's not a bunch. By the International Society of Sustainability Professionals, and one of the 10 most influential sustainability voices in America by The Guardian. Gil.
Thank you, Dr. Ian. Thank you for the image of high level as a core planning concept. I'm going to take that back home with me. Thank you all. It's been a great conference to be here with you. Some of you know Palo Alto. We're in the San Francisco Bay Area, at the heart of Silicon Valley. Some of the stats, this is a small city, much smaller than Copenhagen, although about 1,000 electric vehicles even at that size. Note that our daytime population is massively bigger than our nighttime population. This is the enormous commute flows of the Bay Area coming in and out. We're home to Stanford University, a pretty good asset to have as a neighbor, and companies like HP and SAP and Tesla, who we've talked about, and others. Very interesting and innovative and progressive community. We've done a lot on sustainability. One of the first climate action plans in the US in 2007. Here's our greenhouse gas emissions down about 38% against the 1990 baseline. Pretty cool. And a lot more to do. What you'll notice here is what points to the core of the strategy going forward. The red is road transportation. The blue is natural gas. Yellow is electricity, which has already been made carbon neutral. But to go forward to any kind of significant greenhouse gas reductions, we have to take out the impact of natural gas, and we have to transform transportation. And we obviously can't transform transportation as a city of 66,000 and a metro of many million. We have to do that collaboratively. And a lot more is required to meet the goals. The red line is the glide path to 80 by 50. The blue is where we are. If we keep doing what we've been doing, we can probably get there, but that's a really big if, because it's not consistent efforts over the past 10 years. But rather than scare the city council and say this is a huge challenge, we're saying, hey, you know, it's actually possible to get to there, and maybe it's possible to do 80% by 2030. And what if it were possible to do climate neutral in 10 years, like a moonshot? So our climate plan now development is looking at those three scenarios and bringing forward grounded strategies to achieve each of them to support the kind of public discussion to decide where to go. Key strategies in there: electrification, mobility, water, and finance. I'll talk about the electrification and mobility intersection here today. The traditional approach on transportation has been there's too much traffic, let's build more roads. There's not enough parking spaces, let's build more parking, which of course makes the problem worse. So what the strategy needs to be is to find ways to reduce vehicle miles traveled, to reduce greenhouse gas intensity of travel, and really key we're finding is to increase convenience, because no matter what we do, if it's not more convenient to use the alternatives than to get in a car and drive, people are going to drive, and they're going to drive in whatever car they've got. How do we do that? Through mobility as a service, which we won't talk about much today, electrification, performance-based planning, allowing the market to innovate within rules that the city sets, and using kind of lean, startup, agile, rapid learning cycles to get us there. This is a map from our friends in Helsinki of the mobility as a service notion. Imagine all of your transit modes accessible through a single app and a single service in your cell phone, integrated, one point of planning, one point of booking, one point of paying. So we're piloting that, developing pilots for that as a regional strategy in Silicon Valley. But as a city, our focus has been to build EV readiness. We're not going to drive technology policy. We're not going to drive tax incentives at the state and federal level. But what we can do is make it more possible to have an EV and have it work in our city. A year and a half ago, we passed an EV readiness ordinance, which requires that in all new construction for parking structures, commercial buildings, and multifamily residential, you must provide EV readiness. Readiness meaning conduit, capacity to put in level 1 and level 2 chargers. We're not defining the technology requirements because that's changing very quickly. We want to make sure that when someone is ready to do that, they don't have to go bust up infrastructure. and hammer through concrete walls and spend a lot of money. We're going to make it easy at the start. So that's where we have a leverage requirement. Anything new in certain categories, put it in. We're required to do cost effectiveness analysis. We've assessed that this is less than 1% of the capital cost of the project. Tiny, and obviously has benefits for the property owner in terms of the amenities they can offer for their residents. We used a collaborative process on this, brought together key stakeholders to identify what the issues were and find common ground so the council could support this 8-0. Flexibility, because the industry is changing. We can't make the technology guesses. But we can provide the boundaries for the playing field in which people operate. And really key is removing barriers to entry. We think, hypothesis, we'll see how this plays out, that our biggest leverage isn't trying to drive people to do something, but to get out of their way and to allow the innovation in our region and the market to really proceed. There are challenges in this mix. If we, in fact, are successful at electrifying, taking down our natural gas load and increasing our electrical load, there's challenges to the utility system. We operate the municipal utility, which is a great opportunity and asset for us, and a real challenge, because we have to maintain the integrity and the safety and reliability of the grid. And if 1 or 2 or 3 people on a block buy Teslas, or 2 Teslas, we have to put a new transformer. In fact, if people put in electric vehicles, they may have to upgrade the panels, the electrical panel in their house from 20 or 30 to 50 or 100 or 200 or even 400 amps. And so you have a capacity issue of how fast can the building trades put that supply in over the course of 22,000 households in the city. That's an actual functional limit on how fast we can go on our goals unless we bring up the capacity of that industry. Public right-of-way we're thinking about. We haven't decided how to move on that yet. We think workplace charging is a really key leverage point in addressing the range anxiety that sometimes keeps people away from electric vehicles. We're still trying to figure out what do we do about existing homes. We can require things for new. Anytime you pull a permit, we can say, thou shalt do these things. We can require things for renovations above a certain size, but most of our building stock is not turning over in most years. And if we only rely on those intervention points, the change is too slow. So that's something we're thinking about. I would welcome any of your ideas about what's an appropriate way to encourage people who are not planning to do anything with their building to do something relevant and cool. Lots of levers that we can use, ranging from education and encouragement to mandates. Really key, as Copenhagen spoke about, is procurement. Our city manager said one of our strategies is we go first. Anything we want to encourage anybody else to do, we do it in City Hall. So we just passed a policy this year, adopted a policy. Back up a moment. A few years ago, we decided to make all of our city sedans compressed natural gas. That was the cleanest alternative at the time. Now with carbon neutral electricity, electricity is cleaner than gas, so we're now requiring not get an electric when you can, get an electric period. That's the default. If your range requirements or duty cycles or load requirements say that doesn't work, write an exception and that will be granted. But the default now goes to green. And we're doing that in fleet, we're doing that in paper and copiers and everywhere we can find in the procurement system. Mandates where they are appropriate, but we're not sure that that's the best lever for us. Really big lever is in finance and looking at the total cost of operation. So to the fleet decision, EVs cost more than ICEs, significantly more. We're required to buy the most cost-effective vehicle. We have 2 different budgets, as many governments do. We have a capital budget and an operating budget. EV costs more than the capital budget, costs less than the operating budget. Plus, as a city, we don't get the benefit of the tax incentives from federal and state government. So we did an analysis of total cost of ownership, shows dramatically less cost of ownership. We got a permission to lease the vehicle so that our lessor captures the incentives and passes them on to us. And we think we're going to save $1,000 to $1,500 per vehicle. But we had to create a new financial management process in the city to be able to do that. Otherwise, we were leaving money on the table every day. The guiding principle for us is we go first wherever possible. We show the way. We prove that it works. As I said, we've got California's probably got the highest density of EVs in the United States. Bay Area, Santa Clara County's got the highest in the state. Palo Alto's got the highest in the county. And the question is, what do we do next? How do we encourage that, as well as the other elements of bicycles, mobility as a service, and all the ways of getting people out of cars. When I started this job a year and a half ago, one of the EV advocates said, my goal is to have an EV in every driveway. And I said, no, maybe not. Maybe the goal is not to have an internal combustion car in any driveway. But maybe half of us, or 80% of us, or 90% of us don't need to own cars at all. If we can answer this question, how do we make it more convenient for anyone, anywhere, at any time, to not have to get into a car and drive?